you everyone for joining us today for this special recording debuting our CEP data analysis tool. This is a collaboration between No Kid Hungry and LunchAssist, and we're pleased to bring it to you today. Next slide, please. This collaboration started with the CEP workshop team. You can see our members there below, and we worked with Jen with LunchAssist to bring you this tool. Next slide, please. Our guest speakers who are going to be explaining to you this tool today, we have Jen McNeil, RDN and SNS. She's the co-founder of LunchAssist and former school nutrition director. And Adam Wozniak, Senior Manager, Measurement, Planning, and Analysis of No Kid Hungry, is also going to be explaining this tool to you today. Today, they're going to be speaking to you about applying for CEP, tips for successful CEP data management, tools for successful CEP data management, and also resources that you can use. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jen.
Thanks, Robin. Thank you so much for getting us kicked off here. And yeah, we're really happy to be able to do this recording to kind of show you some of the tips and tools for successful CEP data management. And these are specifically designed for schools in California, but if you're tuning in from out of the state, there's probably some helpful ideas being shared, but be sure to check with your state agency to see how this works with everything that you're submitting for CEP if you're outside of the state of California. So to start off, I just wanted to share a couple of reminders about the process for how to apply for CEP in California. And this will provide you with a little bit of context as to, what all the data is and what's involved with this community eligibility provision application process. So in California, you're going to log into CNIPS to download the CEP application, and there are 3 different forms which can be accessed through the downloadable forms section in your CNIPS account. So part of the application is going to be completing the S&P 19, which you can see here, it's a spreadsheet, and this will give you your CEP, this is where you'll have your CEP percentages. And then you'll also be filling out the S&P 55, and this is a different spreadsheet, and it's going to be listing all of your enrolled and identified students. So there's 3 tabs, and you can see there's an enrollment tab where you put all of your enrollment data, and then an identified students tab where all of the identified students who qualify under your direct certification categories will go. And then the final application form is the S&P 71. And this is like kind of a little checklist, and you'll be sending in several attachments, and you can see them listed here on the screen. So this is where you'll be checking off that you're going to provide the CalPEDS direct certification extracts in .txt format. And then your other data is going to be in Excel format, and you'll just check off that you are submitting all of that original data with this checklist and the other 2 forms. Okay, so to help you organize and kind of keep it all straight, we have a couple of checklists that we will be providing that will be provided with all the links to what we'll be sharing here in the video. So you should have access to this data checklist that was shared in the original workshop. And then also there's a meal claiming method comparison chart, which kind of breaks down some of the basics about operating CEP under universal meals in California. So those are 2 more helpful resources for you. Okay, so now that we have that background, let's take a look at a few data management tips as you get started with doing your CEP application. And our team at LunchAssist, we've worked with a lot of schools over the years in their efforts to apply for CEP, and we've seen a lot of things that have gone wrong, and that's kind of how we've learned. And through that experience, we've come up with these 10 strategies for success, and we reviewed these in greater detail during the March 23rd, 2022 CEP Work Group 2.0. So you can check out that recording for more detail about all of these strategies. And in this video, we wanted to make it a little bit more concise. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of these in more detail, but you can see them all listed here. And then I'll do this, and then once I'm done running through these a few of these tips, then I'll pass it over to Adam, and he's going to run through a tool that we have that will help you kind of navigate some of this. So the first tip is to make sure that when you download your direct certification lists from CalPADS, that you save them in the .txt format. So that's really important, and you probably just saw that on that S&P 71 application checklist. So this is something just to be mindful. Keep your CalPADS extracts, keep the .txt format, and that's going to be helpful in submitting all of your data. And then I wanted to also mention, you will see some example student names and things on here. This is all sample data. You're not going to see any sensitive data in this video. So it's all made up data. So just so you know, this is what the TXT file will look like from CalPADS. This is not a real sensitive data here. Okay, the next is to make sure that all of your direct certification lists include a student ID number. And we just come across this primarily when examining some of the direct certification lists from the counties or local level lists of students who might be homeless or qualified as migrants. So sometimes those lists don't have a student ID, and that can be a problem when you go to analyze your data. And as you can see here on the left side of the screen, the CalPADS direct certification list, it always includes an ID number, but on the right side of the screen, you can see that you're going to need that student identifier for the CEP application form. So the S&P 55, you have to have that on there. And then again, it's going to also make it a lot easier for you to electronically compile your data in an accurate manner. So without the student ID number, there's really not a good way to electronically match up your students. So make sure you have that on all of your data lists that you get from the various people who are providing you all of your different direct certification lists, and that'll help you effectively manage your CEP data. Okay, so speaking of the CEP applications, this is another sneak peek at that S&P 55 application form from the California Department of Education. And the next tip is to make sure that all of the identified students listed on your application are actually enrolled. And in the example on the screen, you can see that our example student, Mike Myers, was listed on the Identified Students tab, but that student is actually not enrolled. So that's a little sneaky, Mike Myers. That's not, we shouldn't have them listed there if they're not enrolled. So we've seen this a lot of times, and it's just a super important thing to be mindful of as you're going through all of your data. And it's not good because it'll change the percentage and your ISP percentage, and it will result in your data and your application being kicked back from the state with some errors. And so you just want to avoid that and make sure that those students who are on your identified students list are actually enrolled. And this is something that the tool that Adam's going to go through in a few minutes will do for you. So that's really good. It's designed to make sure you don't get this error. And then this tip is similar but different. Just make sure that the identified students are present on the direct certification list. So in this example, Amy Bryant is identified as Medi-Cal free, but when we look at the direct certification list, she's nowhere to be found. And that's not good either, because we have to have the original source documentation to show how each student on the identified students list was certified. If we don't have that, we can't really count her on the identified students list. And I've also seen this mistake many times. It's super common, and it usually happens because the school didn't save all of their original lists, and for some reason the student might have dropped off one of the direct certification lists mid-year, or it could also happen if a school is pulling their directly certified students out of the point of sale rather than referring to those original direct certification lists, which is an error-prone way to do it. And so we really need to be working from our CalPADS list and our original direct certification data. So to avoid this, just make sure again that each of the identified students are present on one of the direct certification lists. And again, this is something that the tool will show you in a minute. We'll be able to automate for you so that basically this error should be prevented if you process your data using the tool or use that as a way to do all of your data management. Okay, so moving on, make sure that you only count each identified student only once and according to this direct certification hierarchy. So you're probably aware maybe that the students can show up on more than one direct certification list with more than one eligibility listed. So they could be directly certified as homeless, and then later in the year, they can show up in CalPads as directly certified under S for the SNAP, also known as CalFresh program. So this is extremely common, and you want to have a process in place for removing duplicates and making sure that you count them according to the hierarchy that you see here on the screen. You can read more about that on the CDE website. And this is another thing that is kind of built into the tool that we'll show you. So it kind of helps you manage this process. Okay, another tip here is about extended eligibility. So extended eligibility is the process of where a student who is directly certified is able to extend their eligibility to another member of the household, such as a sibling or a cousin or another child that lives in the household. So in the example here on the screen, you can see that Olive is directly certified S for CalFresh or SNAP. And it turns out that Olive actually has two siblings, Olga and Omar, and they don't show up on our direct certification list, but we can still extend eligibility to Olga and Omar. And oftentimes this gets overlooked, but doing a really thorough job with those sibling or household matches can really boost your ISP. So just keep in mind that it's also important to note who that original eligibility was extended from. So in this example, we would want to note that once we directly certify through extended eligibility Olga and Omar, it notes that we extended it from Olive, so that way the state, when they do your validation review, they can kind of make sense of why you did that. And that is something that we also have a little strategy for you on the tool. So Adam will kind of go over one way that you can work on your extended eligibility through this tool. Okay, finally, my last tip here is to do all the management of this data electronically. And that's one of the reasons you might be tuning in, is to learn how to do that. And we'll show you in a moment how to do some of this electronic management of your CEP data through the tool. But you definitely don't want to be like matching this up manually, because it's a very error-prone process to do manually. So that's kind of why we put this tool together. We're really excited to show it to you. So I'm going to now stop my screen share, and I will pass it over to Adam Wozniak, who's going to take you through the tool in a step-by-step manner. So with that, Adam, I will pass it over to you.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Robin. Yeah, so as Jen mentioned, I'm going to walk through a tool that we've put together, and really want to give credit where credit is due. This was really the brainchild of Jen and the LunchAssist team, and the logic behind this tool and how it all fits together, and the data management piece. And what we did is add on some formulas and features in Excel to hopefully help automate and make some of the process a little bit easier. So as we're going through this, I'm going to reference 3 documents quite a bit. So the main one being the CEP analysis, I know Get Hungry and LunchAssist, an instructions Word document, and then the SMP 55, which is one of the forms that Jen mentioned that must be submitted to the state agency as part of your application. The idea here is that it's a single place for all that direct certification data, with tools to help manage those pesky duplicates and make sure that we're getting accurate counts of the identified students. A couple of notes before we really dive in. Make sure you're using this in Microsoft Excel. It's not compatible with Google Sheets, so don't try to open it up in browser in Google Sheets. It won't work out well for you. Some of the formula cells are locked just to make sure you don't actually press a button and change a formula. But in the instructions document, it shares a password, which is just CEP lowercase. So if you want to get in and edit anything, you have that there. It's available to you. And then the last thing, this is a tool to hopefully make this process easier for you, but it isn't the easy button. It isn't something that we can do without thinking. Make sure that you follow the steps carefully, review the results critically, as you would with any other process. we did all we reasonably could to validate the tool, but formula errors can happen. Same can happen with data entry errors. So, use it as a tool, but make sure that you're critically reviewing the results. All right. So the end goal of what we're trying to get to is to be able to fill out this S&P 55 form that goes to CDE, the state agency. So we'll get to that at the very end. We're looking for the enrollment data and identified students here. And talking about really how this works in the big picture, and managing those duplicates and managing all those different lists. This enrollment tab here is the central sheet that kind of runs everything else here. So what it does is you have your unduplicated list of students, and then all these other tabs that you'll see later tie to this. So as long as this doesn't have any duplicates, what we then submit to CDE also won't duplicate students in terms of enrollment or in terms of their identified student status. So flipping back over to our instructions document here, we're going to go step by step through this. So the first thing you'll have to do is gather all the data that you need. So that's the district enrollment data from your district student information system, the CalPADS direct certification data. Jen was talking about those downloads to text format, and any other data your district might use to identify students. So FDIPR, homeless, migrant, foster, Head Start, runaway, or any of the lists from the county that you can use to directly identify students. Grab those, and then you're going to want to open up the Excel file that we're talking about here. So this is pre-populated with a lot of the copying and pasting, but the one that's posted online will be blank, so you can enter in your own data. One important point here is that there's a lot of formulas working on the back end, which can slow things down a bit. So we highly recommend that you go up on the top here to the Formulas tab. And this is all in the instructions. Going to Calculation Options and clicking Manual. This will really speed up the process. What Excel normally does is every time you update a cell, it's calculating everything that's going on in the spreadsheet. By choosing manual instead of automatic, this allows you to tell Excel when to do the calculations. So, you can wait until you paste in a bunch of data, calculate it all at once, and that'll speed up what would otherwise be a clunkier, slower workbook. All right, so now that we've got those calculations turned on to manual, the next step, which you're probably already thinking of, is now we're pasting in all that data. So the first step is getting this enrollment tab ready to go. So you'll pull that information, you've already pulled that information from your student information system, and you'll come to this enrollment tab, and the most important data here are these first 6 columns, and really B through E. So this is the site name, the student ID that Jen was talking about, and then the student name. You can also put in grade and site ID if that's helpful for you. And then here in columns G through K, this is the information that you'll use for extended eligibility to match up students who are in the same household. So in this example, we're using address to identify households. And so with the way the student information system had address data, it was in 5 different fields. So we could paste it in here, street number, street, second part of the street, the city, the zip code. If your information system has it all in one field, you can just paste that right in the field 1. If your information system has a household identifier number, that would be the best, and you can just paste that in field 1. Really, we just want all that information in these fields in either 1 field or 3 or 5. It doesn't really matter, whatever's easiest for you. And then the combination of all these fields, as we'll see later, is what will identify those households for extended eligibility. Then these gray formulas are calculations. We'll get to L through O later for extended eligibility, and everything out from P onward can really just be hidden. You can ignore that's going on in the background, but if you like nerding out with spreadsheets like I do and seeing how some of these things are calculated, that's there to see as well. So now that we've got the enrollment data in there, the next step is to paste that CalPADS direct certification data into the DC CalPADS tab. So here you can download the one file with all the different categories of eligibility in one file and paste it right into this document. It should line up with the same columns that comes from CalPADS. Then this formula here is a lookup that'll automatically calculate. If you go down to the appendix here, if it pastes in this nasty format where everything's in column A and it's separated by these little carets, just follow these instructions in appendix A and it goes step by step on how to reformat it so it looks like what we have here. All right, and then a couple notes on this one. So if your CalPADS data is more than 50,000 rows long, you're gonna have to unlock the sheet and copy down this formula farther down the sheet. Similarly for enrollment tab, if you have more than 25,000 kids in this enrollment sheet, you're gonna have to copy down all the formulas. That just keeps it from running too slowly if we had done all the tabs before. Back to the CalPADS list, if you have multiple months of CalPADS data, you can paste it just one below the next. It won't create duplicates in the final result. It's just gonna look through all those months, and the first one where it says someone's directly certified, it's gonna grab that and ignore the rest. So as long as they're directly certified in one month or the other, whether it's the first one or the last one, it's gonna pick that up. And then if your county lists are arranged kind of like the CalPADS data where it has a category where it's working with different programs like SNAP and TANF, and you need to know which program the kids are certified for, I'd recommend just reformatting that data into this same format and pasting it into the CalPADS tab. So this one's definitely the most involved in terms of the raw data that you're putting in. When you go down to the next step, which is the different types of direct certification that aren't part of CalPADS. So you'll see all of these other tabs along the bottom. Dipper, homeless, migrant, foster, Head Start, runaway, they all look exactly the same. All they have is a row or a column, and column A for student ID. All you have to do is make sure when you paste it in that the student ID is in column A, and you're only putting in the students who are directly certified through this program. So if you get the list from the homeless liaison staff in your school and paste in all those student IDs here, the tab enrollment will pick all that up. In the other columns, you can put whatever information is helpful here. It won't hurt anything to have additional information. You can put in there names, other info, whatever is helpful for you in your tracking. So you'll see all these look identical. Just need to make sure that those student IDs are in column A. And the county list, as they're in here, function the same way. So again, those would be only for students who directly certify through that list. All right. So now that we have all the data in the spreadsheet, our enrollment data and all of our direct certification data, now we'll need to go and calculate the spreadsheet. So this is because we turned on those manual calculations. So now, still in the formulas ribbon, we'll go to calculate now and click that, depending on the size of your district. It could take a while. We got 25,000 rows calculating in the space one. So you'll see it down here. It's calculating, so you'll see this percentage go up. With screen share, it takes a bit longer. Of course, it's gonna, oh, there we go. It went. Usually that percentage will kind of creep up and you can see that it's going. That time it just went right away. I definitely recommend that's the time where it tends to slow down. Make sure you're saving frequently just in case Excel decides to crash, because it usually likes to do that at the most inopportune time. All right, so now we've refreshed those calculations. And now we can take a look at extended eligibility. So this is something we didn't get a chance to look into as closely during the work group presentation in March of 2022. We can dive into that a little bit more here. So back to our enrollment tab, we talked earlier about these 5 fields being the thing that's driving the sheet, recognizing who might be in the same household as another student. So now coming over to columns L through O, these are your go-to spot for the extended eligibility. So column O here just takes everything that's in G through K and puts it into one field. So we can see where those identical addresses or identical household IDs are. So go ahead and sort this from Z to A. And you can go down, and one way is looking at, okay, who's actually getting extended eligibility here, or looking for these identical IDs here. So here we can see that there's a group of students at 4 Franklin Ave that are all being grouped as one household. And so there's Olive, that's extending their eligibility to Omar and Olga. And we'll see that Olga here, we had a duplicate. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. So here, when you're looking through these, take a close look. What Excel is doing is looking for an exact match. So maybe the data isn't perfect. Maybe in one student, it has street spelled out S-T-R-E-E-T. Another one, it has S-T period. It's not going to recognize that as the same household. So if you're seeing that, go back to these household matching fields. If you think they should really be a household, update them so they match. If you see a matching a group that really shouldn't be, you're like, oh, I know these students, I know, maybe it's an apartment building where they don't have the apartment number. So everyone might be at 1000 Washington Avenue, but they're all in different apartments. They're not actually the same household. Then go in and update it, maybe add an extra field that'll make them different from each other so they won't be identified as extended eligibility. So there are some examples in here. So here we'll see here's Fake Street ST and then Fake Street STREET. So this would identify them as 2 different households. So you'll need to update that, those columns G through K in order to make those match. Perfect. Now, the one thing I skipped over was checking for duplicates that you should really do before the extended eligibility. But there is a handy little check here in cell C1 where it says, this table contains 2 duplicate student IDs. Please review where the rows in column L say duplicate and remove duplicate students from the list. So here, column L, we see that it says duplicate here. So we've got Olga Lucas listed twice here. So we're going to go ahead and remove one of them. We want to leave one remaining because Olga is still a student. We just don't want her twice. And then now we'll see how it's still saying duplicate here because we haven't updated those, calculated those formulas. So go up here, click calculate now. And as this calculates, you should see this duplicate. These 2 duplicates go away here. This person will no longer be considered extended eligible. And the duplicates check will say, we're good to go. There are no duplicates here. Perfect. So duplicates went away, the extended eligibility went away. Now it says good news, this table has no duplicate student IDs. All right, back to our instructions document. So now that we've done that and figured out our extended eligibility, our calculations are complete. So we've got our list of students here. If we go all the way to the end, there is this tab called District ISP Summary. So this breaks down your total enrollment, how many students are being certified through these different programs, which adds up to 8 total certified or identified students for an ISP of about 62%. If you also want to see that at the school level, we can go to School ISP Summary. The instructions will tell you to update this pivot table, go to Data, Refresh All, and then Formulas, Calculate Now. And that'll calculate for each site the number of students, number of identified students, and the ISP. So, if you're thinking about grouping or implementing CEP only in a subset of schools, this can be really helpful in identifying what those ideal groupings should be or which schools to include in your CEP application. All right. So the final process now is submitting that data to CDE via form SMP 55. So as Jen mentioned, this is one of the forms that needs to go to CDE, or if you're listening from another state, a different state, your state agency, in order to apply for the program. So with that, this is the version from 2019. This first page just has some general information about the district. And where we need to put in the data is in this enrollment tab and identified students tab. So they always started out with some sample data here. So we'll go ahead and delete that and go back to our tool in our enrollment tab. So here we can copy the data from site name, student ID, last name, first name, copy, and then paste it here. If we want, we can get rid of this blank row. Well, they have it protected. So we could just sort by the sites that goes down to the bottom. Right now we've got our list of 13 students. And then for the identified students, we just need to paste in all the students who are identified through a program or through extended eligibility. Now they put this in a different format as the enrollment, so let's do a few more copies and paste, but it's pretty straightforward. So for that, we will delete the sample data, come back here. Now, the key difference is over in column M, eligibility type, we're gonna have to filter this and exclude the blanks. So we're excluding all the kids who are not directly certified. Click OK. Filtering with more students sometimes takes a bit of time, but now we can see what we want to copy over. So the first one is the site name. Copy that. Paste here. And eligibility type. So that comes from column M. Now, an important thing here is because in here we have, in this cell, there's actually this big ugly formula. If we just right click and do paste or Control V, it's gonna copy the formula and it's not gonna know what to reference. And then when you send it to CDE, there's gonna be an error and it's gonna come back to you. So what you need to do is tell Excel to just paste the result of that formula, the value that the formula yields, rather than the gobbledygook behind it. So if you right click here and in the paste options, there is this clipboard with the 1, 2, 3, and you hover over it, it says values. click on that, and now you'll see it's just pasted the result of that formula. So foster, SNAP, homeless, extended eligibility, rather than that formula. So you're good to go there. And then we just need first name, last name, and the ID. So we'll grab first name. These we can just do normal Control V to paste since they aren't formulas. Last name and our student ID. And then save this, and this should be, of course, after you take a look and make sure everything's looking good and reasonable to your understanding of your district, ready to submit. So again, just really want to plug this instructions document. It goes into even more detail than we went to on this call, and goes very step by step to hopefully make it as easy and user-friendly as possible. And reiterating the most important thing is making sure that you make sure that this enrollment tab has all your students and doesn't have any duplicates. If you've got that squared away, things should tie together in the right way and really help mitigate some of those common mistakes that Jen mentioned before, and make sure that you're following a lot of those tips that she laid out to us before. So just gonna see if anybody else on the call has anything to add here, and if not, I will pass it back over to Robin.
Thank you so much, Adam, for your expertise in formatting this tool. And thank you to Jen and LunchAssist for the amazing innovation in designing this tool for the food service world. This recording, along with written instructions for using the CEP data management tool, can be found on the No Kid Hungry California website under the Resource Center tab, where you'll find our dedicated CEP page. If you have any questions on this tool or CEP, please reach out to us at No Kid Hungry California or No Kid Hungry CA at strength.org. Thank you for tuning in. This concludes our recording.